This
Yes,
screen?
sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, Saurabh this side. Sir, I had some doubts from the previous session. So should I proceed now or after the class?
Uh, uh, what would you prefer?
Okay, sir, after the class only. Okay.
Okay, fine. All right. So uh, we have so far discussed what is demand, what is supply, what are the different factors on which these two depend. Then we have discussed something called the law of demand, the law of supply. We have also discussed the concept of shift factors. We have also discussed when does the demand curve shift to its right, when does it shift to its left. Likewise for supply, when does it shift to its right, when does it shift to its left. Then we discussed the concept of market equilibrium, that is intersection of demand and supply curves. And then we discussed what happens if one curve stays the same, but the other curve shifts either to its right or to its left. We also discussed what will happen if both curves uh, shift simultaneously. So after having discussed these things briefly, uh, today we turn our attention to a very, very important concept in economics called elasticities of supply and demand. So if you recall the definition of law of demand, it says that higher the demand, uh, higher the price, lower the demand, and lower the price, higher the demand. Other things remaining the same, isn't it? That when price goes up, the demand falls, and when price falls, demand goes up, provided other things remain the same. For example, income of the consumer should remain the same, tastes and preferences of the consumer should remain the same, like substitutes and complementary products should remain the same. So all these factors are kept constant, and then we derive the relationship between quantity demanded and price in terms of the law of demand. But then the law of demand does not tell us about how much will the demand change as a result of a 1% change in price. So that is exactly what does elasticity. So elasticity of demand or elasticity of supply simply means the responsiveness of demand or supply to a change in the price of that product. Say, for example, if at 100 rupees per chocolate, there is a demand for 200 chocolates. Now, if price goes up from 100 rupees to 110 rupees and other things remaining the same, we know that the demand for chocolates is likely to fall. But by how much? But by how much will the demand for chocolate will fall? Will it fall by 10%? Will it increase by 10%? Will it stay the same? What will happen? Or will it fall by less than 10% or more than 10%? So that is exactly the kind of gap that this price elasticity of demand fulfills. So let me uh, start annotation for this particular lecture, for which I'll have to turn my attention to something else first. Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Okay, so this is what we have. Elasticity is a very general concept. It's a very general concept. So it can be elasticity of demand, it can be elasticity of supply, it can be income elasticity, it can be anything, production elasticity. So what does elasticity in general mean? It means percentage change in one variable resulting from 1% change in another. So the word increase is not actually required here, but increase is written only for pedagogical reasons. Only for pedagogical reasons. Otherwise, the better word would be change. What would be the percentage change in one variable resulting from a 1% change in another variable? Now, if we apply this concept to demand and supply, then what will happen? So price elasticity of demand is defined as percent change in quantity demanded divided by percent change in price of that particular product. So if we write it here, this is how we will write. Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in the price of the product. So how do we calculate percentage change in something? So what we do is we first find out what is the change in the quantity demanded. That is delta QD stands for change in quantity demanded divided by original quantity demanded. Divided by original quantity demanded. So for example, here we have quantity demanded and here we have price. Price is 10, 11, 12, etc. And the demand is 100, 90, 70, and so on. So when price goes up from 10 to 11, by how much does quantity demanded fall? It falls by 10 units. So quantity demanded has changed by 10 units. In fact, it has fallen. So you can say that it is minus 10 divided by what was the original quantity. Original quantity was 100. So we write 100. And if you multiply it with 100, then you get percentage change in demand. Likewise, how will you calculate percentage change in price? That is delta P by P. So what was the original price? 10 rupees. So we write 10 rupees in place of P. And how much has the price changed? It has changed by 1 rupee. It has gone up to 11 from 10. So we write 1. And again we multiply it with 100. So how much it is? This is also 10%. So how much is elasticity? 10% is the change in quantity demanded divided by 10% is the change in the price. Therefore, elasticity of demand is equal to 1, or price elasticity of demand is equal to 1. So that is what we do. So let us simplify this formula a little bit and see how and in what form do we use it. In what form do we use it? So we write percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. This can also be written as delta QD by QD into 100 divided by delta P by P into 100. Now this 100 can be cancelled. You are now left with delta QD by delta QD by QD divided by delta P by P. Or if you simplify it a little bit, what do you get? Delta Q. Let us forget about the term D. We are only using the term Q. Delta Q by delta P into P by Q. So this is how you can write it. So delta Q by delta P. So all the deltas have been brought in one place and non-deltas in another place. So this is the formula. What is the formula? Delta Q by delta P into P by Q. I hope you will remember this thing. This is the formula to calculate elasticity of demand. Now, if you notice, this thing, the first term in this particular expression, that is delta Q by delta P, is nothing but slope of the demand curve. So delta Q by delta P is the slope of the demand curve. So we can also say that elasticity of demand with respect to price, let us denote it by EP, elasticity of demand with respect to price is equal to slope times P by Q. That is slope times the ratio of price to quantity. So this is what we call the definition or the formula to calculate price elasticity of demand. Is this clear or not? Tell me. Shall I proceed from here or not?
Please
Sir,
explain.
Yes.
sir, can you please explain the last formula? EP is equal to slope into P by Q.
Yes, sir.
Sorry?
Sir, can you please explain the last formula once again? EP is equal to slope into P by
Okay.
Q.
Very simple. I think you are actually referring to this thing. How are these two equal? No. Is this what you are asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us say this is delta Q by this is Q, and then this is delta P by P. So instead of dividing it, if we multiply this, then this will have to be found in terms of reciprocal. So P by delta P. So when you convert it from division to multiplication, then the denominator can be written in terms of its inverse. That is, instead of delta P by P, it will become P by delta P. So we have written P by delta P. And you slightly rearrange it, delta Q by delta P into P by Q. That's it. Is it okay?
Yes, I got it. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So that's how. All right. Now, so if you have understood this, let's take very simple numerical example. Very simple numerical example. Say originally P is 10, then it goes on to become 12. Then quantity, originally it is 100, then it goes on to become 110. Sorry. Then it goes on to become 90. Because there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity. So when price goes up from 10 to 12, the quantity must fall. Now, we have presumed that the quantity has fallen from 100 units to 90 units as a result of a 20% increase in the price of the product. So let us calculate this. So delta Q, how much is delta Q? How much is delta Q? Minus 10. How much is original? How much is the original price? Original quantity?
100.
100.
This is 10% divided by percentage change in the price. How much has price gone up?
20%.
Out of
20.
10, that is 20%. So this is minus 10%. This is plus 20%. So how much is this? Minus 0.5. So this is the value of elasticity. That is minus 0.5. Just remember one thing, that normally we do not write the minus sign in elasticity. Why? Because it is presumed that elasticity will be negative. No need to write it or indicate it. We know that there is an inverse or negative relationship between demand and price, and therefore the elasticity will be negative. The demand elasticity will be negative. But we have still indicated it. If you indicate the minus sign, there is no harm. But why to take the trouble of indicating a minus sign if we know that without doing it is also fine? So this is minus 0.5. Now, if we have to interpret this number, that is minus 0.5, how will we interpret it? What is the interpretation of 0.5? And what if it was 1.0 instead of 0.5? Or what if it was 1.5 instead of zero point 0.5? So this is the interpretation. If price goes up by 10%, demand will fall by 5%. This is the interpretation of the elasticity value equal to 0.05. What did I say? If price goes up by 20%, how much will demand fall? Exactly half of the extent of increase in price. That is 10%. Why half? This price goes up 20%, demand falls 10%, which is just half of price. Why? Because elasticity is 0.5. What if elasticity is equal to 1 minus 1.0? What will be the interpretation? Anyone? What if this is equal to 1? Percentage change in demand is divided by percentage change in price. If it is 1, what does it mean? So it means that if price changes by 10%, demand will also change by 10%. So the change in both quantity demanded and price is equal. What if this elasticity is equal to 2.0, not 1.0, but 2.0, of course, minus 2.0. What will be the interpretation now? So
Sir,
instead of this
quantity change.
one,
Quantity
yeah,
change is double of the change in price.
yeah, quantity change is the double of change in price. What if elasticity is equal to 1.2? That is minus 1.2.
Quantity change is 1.2 times that of change in price.
Yeah, quantity change is 1.2 times the in price. If price change 10%, how much is the quantity change? If price changes by 10%, then by how much will the demand change if price elasticity of demand is 1.2? That is 12%. 1.2 times 10% is 12%. What if it is elasticity is equal to minus 1.6? What
Then
will be the
16%.
interpretation? Yeah, if price changes by 10%, the demand changes by
16%.
16%. So this is the interpretation of price elasticity of demand. Or you can also convert it into a say interpretation where price changes by 1%, then by how much does the demand change? So if price changes by 1% and elasticity is equal to minus 0.5, then by how much does the demand change?
0.5.
0.5%. So that is what it actually shows. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Next. So whatever we have stated so far is written symbolically here. So instead of a small EP, what are we denoting elasticity with? Capital EP. And percentage delta Q, that is percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change in price, is how we define the elasticity. And this percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price can easily be written as this one. That is P by Q multiplied by the slope of the demand curve. That is delta Q by delta P. So this is just a repetition of what I have already explained. Is this fine?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Next, next is, so basically, next is the case of linear demand curve. What is a linear curve? What does a linear curve mean? If I want to draw a linear curve or a uh, linear line, what will it look like?
So straight line.
A linear means straight. Linear means straight. So since demand curve slopes downwards, let us draw a demand curve like this. A straight line which slopes downwards. Let us call this point point A, this point B, and let us mark a point which is the middle point of this line A and B. Let us call it M, the middle point. Okay? Any point between A and M will be higher than M, and any point between M and B will be lower than M. Now, so this is a linear demand curve. Okay? Then this linear demand curve has same slope everywhere, isn't it? Because the equation of a straight line is written in terms of this. This is the equation of a straight line. What is the slope of this line?
So B, small b.
So
A,
slope
A,
of this line is B.
A.
Slope of this line is B. A is the intercept. A is the intercept, not the slope. What does A mean? What is the
Y
interpretation?
intercept.
Hmm?
Y-intercept.
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 And what does Y intercept mean in terms of this curve?
Fetch the price.
So price.
Say that if P is equal to 0, then Q is equal to A. If price is 0, then how much quantity will be demanded?
So B.
If P is equal to 0,
A, sir.
A. If P is equal to 0, the quantity demanded will be A. Remember that concept of free goods like water, like education, like air. Remember that concept? Okay. So basically what we are saying is that if P is 0, then A is the total quantity demanded. And that is what we call the intercept. And B is the slope. And since it is negative, it means that the demand curve slopes downwards. Moreover, B is constant throughout the particular linear demand curve, which we have shown here, throughout. Now, what it actually means is that since elasticity is equal to slope into P by Q, since elasticity is equal to slope into P by Q, then if you take various points along this linear demand curve, the slope will be the same. There will be no difference in the slope of this line at point Q, no difference at point Q or at point anywhere between EP and anywhere between these two or anywhere between these two. So the slope here, 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 everywhere the slope is the same. There is no difference in the slope. So what will make the elasticities different from each other at different points of this curve?
So
And the
quantity demanded.
it will differ because of the change in the ratio of P to Q. So for example, if you take a point here, let us say this is 3, and let us say this is also 3. So at this point, let us call it point B. At B, P by Q is 3 by 3, isn't it? But at this point, let us call it point C. At this point, the P by Q is equal to how much? 2 by 4. So this is 0.5, this is 1, isn't it? So basically, if you go along this curve, then the ratio P to Q will change. What will happen to the slope if you go from B to C or from C to D?
It will remain the same.
The slope will remain the same. So which factor will determine the elasticity along this line?
The ratio
Ratio of price and
P by
The
Q.
ratio of price to quantity. The ratio of price to quantity. Now, think of this particular point here, this point, this one. Now, at this point, let whatever be the slope is, let the slope remain at that. Slope into. Now, at this point, what is the price?
0.
0.
So the price is 0. Price is 0 divided by what is the quantity?
8.
8. So what is the value of slope into 0 by 8?
0.
0.
So therefore elasticity is 0. Therefore elasticity is 0. Now can you work out why elasticity is infinity here at 0.4?
So because quantity is 0. Because quantity is 0 and anything divided by 0 is infinity.
So anything divided by this is infinity. So that is why this is infinity. This is infinity. At this point, the price, the elasticity is infinity, and at this point, the elasticity is 0. Now, one thing that you should be very, very clear about is as to what does 0 elasticity mean? Say if elasticity is 0, what does this mean?
Sir, there is no change in price and quantity demanded.
Sir, the effect of change
No,
in price
no
does not change the quantity demanded.
So even if price changes, the quantity demanded does not change. And what will this infinity mean? So theoretically, it would mean that even though price has not changed, quantity demanded has changed infinitely. So that is what it means. And if we try and picture it in terms of a curve, in terms of a demand curve, how will a demand curve with 0 price elasticity look like? And how will a demand curve with infinity price elasticity look like? So this is what we show in the next slide. So this particular demand curve is not a downward sloping demand curve. What kind of a demand curve is it? It is a horizontal demand curve. And here elasticity is infinite. That, how do we know that it is infinite? How do we know this? So you just see at price P star, quantity to begin with is 0. But at the same price, quantity may go up from 0 to 10. At the same price, it may go up from 10 to 20 to 30 to 40. So any quantity can be sold or any quantity can be demanded without any change in price. And that is why it becomes an infinitely elastic demand. Just remember this important thing, that if the price elasticity of demand is infinity, then the demand curve will be a horizontally straight line. And a demand curve like this applies to a firm or a producer under perfect competition. And we will discuss the concept of perfect competition later on. But a firm working under competitive conditions is likely to face a infinitely elastic demand. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that because a tiny change in price leads to an enormous change in demand, that the price has not even changed a wee bit. So I think this word tiny is not the right word. You have not changed the price. Prices still remain the same. But even then, the demand changes enormously. That is why we call it infinitely elastic demand curve. What if the price elasticity is zero? What will you do then? What if the price elasticity is zero? What kind of curve do you expect that to be? Any guesses?
So the line will be on the x-axis.
Sir, a vertical line.
Yeah, very good. Both are correct. So this is the demand curve. It is vertically straight. What does this mean? It means that even if you change the price from 10 rupees to 20 rupees to 30 rupees to 40 rupees, whatever you do to price, quantity will not change. It will remain at Q star. So that means change in quantity is zero, even if change in price is not zero. So any zero divided by something is infinity. So, sorry, zero. So therefore, zero divided by anything is zero, and therefore, elasticity of demand is this zero. Okay. Now, another thing about this that we can say is a completely inelastic demand curve. So here, you should note the lingo of the elasticity concept. What we are saying is inelastic demand. And we are also saying elastic demand. So suppose you read in a newspaper that something is elastic or demand for something is elastic. What does that mean? So inelastic means less responsive demand. And elastic demand curve means more responsive demand. And I have not yet defined what is less, what is more. All that I'm saying is that please remember that if you go through a news report in which you've come across a term like inelastic demand or elastic demand, then what it means is that it is either less responsive demand to a change in price or a more responsive demand to a change in price. So what is less responsive and what is more responsive? So the benchmark is 1. Elasticity is 1, then we call it, of course, unit elasticity. We call it unit elasticity. If elasticity is greater than 1, then we call it elastic demand. We call it elastic demand. And if elasticity is less than 1, then we call it inelastic demand. And of course, when we are saying greater than 1, less than 1, we are ignoring the minus sign. All that we are saying is that the absolute value of elasticity is either equal to 1, greater than 1, or less than 1. Equal to 1 is a benchmark, unitary elasticity, which means that if price changes by 10%, then the demand also changes by 10%. But if elasticity of demand with respect to price is greater than 1, it means that 10% change in price will lead to a more than 10% change in demand. And that is why we call it elastic, very responsive demand. It means that demand has responded more as compared to the change in price. And inelastic demand means less responsive, relatively less responsive demand, which means that the price changes by 10%, then the demand changes, but by less than 10%. So that is why it is called inelastic demand. Or sometimes we also qualify this term as relatively inelastic and relatively elastic. So this is another term, relatively inelastic and relatively elastic. So they are the same thing. Relatively inelastic means elasticity is less than 1, and relatively elastic means that the elasticity is greater than 1. Now you will see that why we have written it as completely inelastic demand. Completely inelastic demand means that there is no response from the side of the demand when the price changes. So price has changed, but the demand has not responded even 1%. So that is why we call it completely inelastic demand whenever the price elasticity is equal to 0. So this thing is called elasticity equal to 0. And the other one, which is completely elastic demand, just its opposite, elasticity will be infinity. Any question on this? This is just the linguistics of elasticity and nothing else. Elastic demand, inelastic demand, relatively less, relatively elastic demand, relatively inelastic demand, completely inelastic demand, or completely elastic demand, unit elasticity. So this is nothing but just the lingo of elasticity, and I hope you have understood it. If you have not, just please let me know.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, as you just said that uh, the the elasticity, that is EP equal to 1. So since in this case where a completely inelastic demand says EP equal to 0, so since we are considering, we are ignoring the negative sign there. So EP equal to 0 actually falls within EP greater than 1, right? So it should be completely elastic demand.
That's why I said we are not considering the negative sign. Normally, just write the negative sign in order to avoid any confusion. So
Okay,
let's say this way, that if the absolute value of elasticity is 0, then it is called completely inelastic demand. If absolute value of elasticity is greater than 1, then we call it relatively elastic demand. If absolute value of elasticity is between 0 and 1, that is less than 1, then we call it relatively
inelastic.
inelastic.
Elastic.
Okay?
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So this is what it is. And then other demand elasticities. So we have also something called income elasticity of demand. So if earlier we discussed price elasticity of demand and now we are talking about income elasticity of demand, then what could it possibly stand for? So you just notice this. Instead of price, we have here written income. If you compare the definition of price elasticity of demand with income elasticity of demand, then the only difference in the definition is in this term. In terms of price elasticity, it would be price, and in terms of income elasticity, this will be income. So percentage change in the quantity demanded resulting from a 1% change in income. And that is why we have written something like this. So elasticity of income is equal to delta Q by delta I multiplied by I by Q. So this is your elasticity of demand with respect to income. Now think of it. Think of this situation. Here you have income and here you have demand. All other factors are same, like price, then substitute prices, tastes and preferences, number of consumers, everything is same. The only things which are changing are income and demand. Suppose your income is $1,000 per week and your demand is for 100 units. Then your income goes up from 1,000 to 1,100. And your demand, what will happen to your demand for a product if your income goes up?
It will increase.
So the
Demand will increase.
to increase. Let us say demand goes up from 100 to 105. So now we can find out what is the percentage change in demand and what is the percentage change in income. What is percentage change in demand? Percentage change in demand is 5% because it has gone up from 100 to 105. What is the percentage increase in income? It is 10%. So this is equal to 1 by 2. So 0.5. So what does it mean? A 1% increase in income will lead to 0.5% increase in demand. And remember that elasticity of demand with respect to income will normally be positive. But in some cases it can be negative also. For example, if your income goes up, you may buy your own vehicle and you may demand public transport less than before. So in that case, your demand, instead of increasing 105, it may actually fall to 95. Why will it fall? Because earlier when your income was less, you were using public transport. But now your income has gone up. So you have bought your motorcycle, your own vehicle, your car, and therefore you are now using your own vehicle, own car in order to go from one place to another. So that is why the demand for public transport may fall. Likewise, when your income was less earlier, you were using inferior quality of grains. But as a result of increase in your income, you may shift from inferior quality grain to superior quality grain, and therefore the demand for inferior quality grain will fall. So such goods are called inferior goods. Such goods are called inferior goods. There is also something called goods. I will not discuss it right now because it is not required. But if in due course, we will discuss Giffen's goods. In the meantime, you can also look for what is a Giffen's goods in terms of elasticity. So basically what we are saying is that demand elasticity with respect to price, and this is income elasticity with respect to demand. Elasticity of demand with respect to income. Is this clear? Likewise, there is something called cross price elasticity of demand. What is cross price elasticity of demand? So just read it carefully. Percentage change in the quantity demanded of one product resulting from a 1% increase in the price of another product, not the same product, but another product. So let us say we are talking about tea and coffee. Tea and coffee. Price of tea is 10 rupees and demand for tea is 100 units of tea. But we do not know what is the demand for coffee, and that is not essential also. The price of tea is still 10 rupees. But demand for tea goes up from 100 units to 110 units. What could this possibly be a result of? Why would the demand for tea go up even if the price of tea has remained the same?
Sir, the price of coffee has also gone up, relatively higher than tea.
Price of coffee may have gone up. Price of coffee. Say earlier price of coffee is 20 rupees. Now the price of coffee is 30 rupees. So it is not the price of tea which has gone up. It is the price of coffee which has gone up. And we are not talking about the impact of an increase in the price of coffee on the demand for coffee. we are talking about the impact of increasing price of coffee on the demand for tea. So when the price of coffee goes up from 20 rupees to 30 rupees per cup, what happens to demand for tea? Demand for tea goes up from 100 to 110. So that is why we are saying that the cross elasticity is defined as percentage change in the quantity demanded of one good, that is tea, resulting from a 1% increase in the price of another, that is price of coffee. So by how much has price of coffee gone up and by how much has the demand for tea gone up? So quantity demanded has gone up, price of coffee, this is tea, this is coffee. So price of coffee has gone up by 50%, whereas demand for tea has gone up by 10%. So 10 by 5, 10 by 50, or 1 by 5, 0. So cross elasticity is 0.2. Now, had it been 0.7 or 0.9, what would have meant? Or even this 0.2, what does this 0.2 mean? How do you interpret it?
So due to the increase in the price of coffee, the demand of tea has risen by 0.2%.
Yeah, so if price of coffee goes up by 1%, demand for tea will go up by 0.2%. What if it is 0.7?
Then the demand for tea will go up by 7%.
If price of coffee goes up by 10%, demand for coffee will go up by 7%, right? So this is how we define cross price elasticity. But this cross price elasticity was in the context of substitute products like coffee and tea. What if there are two complementary products like computers and softwares, hardwares and softwares? What do you expect the cross price elasticity to be? So let us say we are talking about demand for laptop, and this is software. This is price. So price say 100 rupees, demand for laptop is 20. Price goes up from, not price of the laptop remains the same, but the demand for laptop goes up by 30, goes up to 30 from 20. Then what must have led to an increase in the demand for laptop?
So lowering in the prices of software.
Yeah, so price of software must have fallen. Let us say the price of software earlier was 10. Now it has gone down to 9. So as a result of lower price of software, the demand for laptop has gone up because it is easier, it is less costly to use a laptop now, isn't it? So that is how we say that this is cross elasticity for those products which are complementary products. So let's calculate it. Percentage change in demand is 50% because it's gone up from 20 to 30. And then what is the percentage change in the price of software? This is minus 10% because it has gone down from 10 to 9. What is the value? Minus 5. Minus 5. Now this time minus is important because if cross elasticity is negative, it means we are referring to complementary products. If cross elasticity is positive, it means we are referring to substitute products. So that is how the sign minus or plus is important in case of cross price elasticity. So basically, cross price elasticity of demand is defined as percent change in quantity demanded of one good resulting from percentage change in the price of another good. That is how we define it. So this is cross price elasticity. And then one of the most important elasticities on which I have done my PhD in economics is the elasticity of supply. How do we calculate price elasticity of supply? So instead of demand, we have replaced the word supply. So percentage change in quantity supplied resulting from a 1% increase in price. So how will we write the formula of this thing? How will we write the formula of supply elasticity? So supply elasticity is equal to percentage change in supply divided by percentage change in price. Percentage change in price. And we know that there is a positive relationship between price and supply. Higher the price, higher the supply, lower the price, lower the supply, other things remain the same. So if price goes up by 10%, if it goes up by 10%, and if supply goes up by 20%, it means that the supply elasticity is equal to 2. If price goes up by 10% and supply goes up by 5%, then it means that supply elasticity is 0.5. So you can have relatively elastic supply, or relatively inelastic supply, So which situation will we treat as elastic supply and which inelastic supply? You can borrow the idea from that elastic demand and inelastic demand. What is elastic supply?
So when the elasticity is greater than 1.
Yeah. If elasticity of supply is greater than 1, then it will be called elastic supply. And will supply inelastic?
Less than 1.
When elasticity of supply is less than 1. So basically, we need to know the elasticity of supply because that suggests how quickly you can change the supply or how responsive is change in supply to a change in price. So think of a situation where the government announces an increase in the minimum support price of wheat. So if price of wheat goes up, then how do you think farmers will respond? Will they produce more or attempt to produce more, or will they attempt to produce less?
More.
They will attempt to produce more because they will get more price for their product in the market. And therefore, many scholars have attempted to calculate elasticity of supply of agricultural products, and they have found that they are quite elastic. And what does that mean, that they are quite elastic? It means that if the Sarkar raises the price by 10%, probably the farmers will respond by increasing the supply by more than 10%, isn't it? So that's how elasticity of supply is important. So then there is something called arc elasticity, and arc elasticity is to be shown by means of a very simple numerical example. Let me try and show it. Arc elasticity. So let us draw a curve, demand curve. Say a demand curve slopes downwards. We have This is 10. This is 5. Price falls from 10 rupees to 9 rupees. This goes up from 5 to, let us say, 6. This goes up from 5 to 6. This is point A, this is point B. Now, let us consider point A as the original point and B is as the new point. Okay, so arc elasticity is calculating the elasticity over this range, that is between A and B. This is arc elasticity. Now, in order to understand the concept of arc elasticity, first calculate the elasticity at point A. Elasticity of demand at point A. What is the percentage change in the demand when price falls from 10 to 9? So this becomes 5 to 6, goes up by 1. 1 out of 5 is 20%. So percentage change in demand is 20%. What is the percentage change in price?
10%.
10%. So the price elasticity is equal to 2. Right? Then reverse the argument. Instead of B being the new point, let B be the original point. Let this B be the original point and A be the new point. And let us now recalculate the elasticity. So, elasticity is equal to, first it was 9, then it goes up to 10. What is the difference? 1. 1 out of 9 is 1 out of, sorry, not this. This is price, this is quantity. Okay, so this is price, this is quantity. Now, what is the change in the quantity? This is 1 out of 6 divided by how much has price gone up? From 9 to 10. So how much has it changed? 1 out of 9. Now you solve this, what do you get? What do you get? Do you get 2? Is it same as 2? This was done considering from A to B. This is from
1.5.
So 1.5. So this is 1.5. This is from B to A. So when you choose the point, the elasticities also change over the arc of the curve. So to take care of this thing, what we do is we just calculate the average of two prices and average of two quantities. That is what is arc elasticity. So let's go back to the original slide. Let's go back to the original slide and see what we are doing. Okay, so there it is. Find, I think this was the earlier one. Cross. This is elasticity of supply. This is point elasticity. You don't think about it as of now. I'll explain it to you in the next class with an example. But right now, just look at this arc elasticity of demand, which is what? Change in quantity demanded upon change in price divided by the original price, divided by the average price, the average quantity. So change was how much? It was from 10 to 9. Price changed from 10 to 9 and quantity changed from how much? 5 to 6. This was the case. So what is the change in quantity demanded? 1 divided by what was the change in price? That was also 1 multiplied by average. What was the average of the two quantities and the average of the two prices? 9.5 is the average of the two prices divided by 5.5 is the average of the two quantities. So this is your arc elasticity. So basically, what we do in arc elasticity is this: delta Q by Q1 plus Q2 divided by 2 multiplied by, divided by delta P by P1 plus P2 by 2. So this is the arc elasticity. So this can be simplified as delta Q by Q bar divided by delta P by P bar. So this is delta Q by delta P into P bar by Q bar. Into P bar by Q bar. So this is how we have simplified the calculation of arc elasticity. Now by doing this thing, by doing the averaging, we then remove the possibility of different elasticities at different points on the same curve. So we just calculate elasticity over the entire arc of the curve. Say this is point A, this is point B, and we calculate elasticity over this arc, A to B. That is called arc elasticity. So that's it for today. If you have any question, please go ahead. We have another 5 minutes with us. In the meantime, I will first take the attendance and then you just try and think of some questions that you have. Do you have any question?
Yes, sir. I have a question from the
Yeah.
previous class. So,
Okay.
in the previous class, as you have told that if the prices of substitute products goes up, then the demand for the product goes up. I didn't understand this
Yeah.
line.
Very simple. Today also we took up this discussion, isn't it? We took up this discussion today also. What did we say? We said that suppose two products are substitute products. Let us say coffee and tea, and we are talking about the demand for tea. But demand for tea can change not only because the price of tea can change, but also because price of coffee can change. So if price of coffee goes up from 20 rupees per cup to 30 rupees per cup, then what do you expect the demand of tea to be? More than before or less than before?
Okay, more, sir. And sir,
Why?
because sir, the price of price of coffee has fallen.
Because say if price of coffee falls, then what do you expect the impact on demand for tea?
The tea should decrease.
Yeah, because tea has now become relatively costlier. It is easier to shift from tea to coffee because coffee is relatively cheaper. So basically, it's the change in the relative price of tea which brings about a change in the demand for tea.
Okay. And sir, what are supplementary products?
Supplementary or complementary? Complementary products are those which cannot be where you cannot use one product if the other product is not being used simultaneously. For example, your motorbike or your scooter, you cannot use that unless you fill the tank with petrol or diesel, isn't it? So, petrol and vehicle, they are complementary. Ink and pen, they are also complementary. Computer hardware and computer software, they are also complementary. So basically, complementary products are those where one cannot be used without the other.
Okay, sir.
Right? So, who is Tanvi Pandey? Is